Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again Guion Hughes. Guion,
Thanks
it's
for
been a
having
while.
me. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a while.
it's good to have you back on. And today we're going to be talking about different things that you can do with spirits that are in your home, approaching them. I know that this is something that we all experience. We've all had. I think that some people choose to acknowledge it, and some people tend to just kind of put it in the back of their mind and pretend it doesn't it's not there. What do you think, Guillaume?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people their first reaction is fear. You know, because they're fear of the unknown. Because they don't really know what they're dealing with necessarily, uh, and it's that kind of reaction. I think there's certain in my experience there's certain spirits that like that reaction that want you to be kind of fearful of them. And but the way I approach it a lot of times is usually trying to identify the spirit and see like what do they want? It's almost like
Yeah.
if somebody comes up to you, online or in person and wants to like kind of test your not really test your boundaries, but just acknowledge that they see you, that they want something to do with you. So what is your business kind of thing? That I think that's a better way of approaching spirits. But the fear that's a whole nother thing to work through, because a lot of people that's their first reaction is oh well, I mean, I don't understand this. They don't even they just like freak out kind of, and
Well,
that
I think
once you get
that
past that,
yeah, I think that what the difference between yeah, I'm gonna separate it in two classes of people. People that are into the paranormal, into the occult, and those who kind of just um aren't, whether they're atheist or just don't believe in the spirit world or are just religious and are scared. I think that when people encounter paranormal activity in their home, they either are interested in it and want to delve more, or they kind of are scared and just kind of lie to themselves and say, well, that didn't really happen. That's just a figment of my imagination. When deep down they know there's something happened. But
Mhm.
there's always usually it's those two reactions. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, the thing is when the first time I saw spirits, I was a child, and my first reaction was to scream, and a lot of times this happens. I don't know, if you've had this experience, but when right before we're gonna go to sleep, it's in it's in this theta state, this theta state right before delta, and the theta is kind of like a twilight, and you're more apt to see spirits or you could say hallucinate or whatever. So when I
Right.
first saw a spirit, I've told this story before, but my grandfather died in front of me when I was 7, and I felt the spirit go through me and everything, and then shortly after that, every time I tried to go to sleep, he would just be standing there at the bed, and my first reaction was, oh, I mean, it's like 7 years old
Yeah.
seeing a ghost, basically, right? And and then I would freak out, and he would disappear, and they actually, my parents actually brought me to a doctor, and they said night terrors or sleep paralysis, those kind of things. So that also, a lot of these things, and hallucination. So a lot of these things, and that was one of the main things that where I thought I knew the spirit was real, my grandfather, because he one time he was able to like stop me before I screamed or whatever, and he goes, no, I don't mean anything bad, I just miss you. And he says, don't tell people you see me, because they won't understand, and they may put you in some kind of hospital, because back in the 70s, if you say, even if you're a kid, if you say you're seeing spirits and all this, they may put you in a mental institution, I mean, so there's a lot of stigma, and so it's understandable that, and not only the modern psychology is saying, you're hallucinating, you have a mental problem, this and that, and it's looked down on that way, but also with Christianity, there a lot of pastors, and in the Bible there are passages that say don't contact spirits, don't
Well,
do
I
those
think
things.
that I mean, compared to back then to now, it's a lot different because, especially now in the digital age, and the internet, people are much more open to that stuff. I mean, if you turn on cable TV or just stuff that's streaming on on entertainment platforms, a lot of times half of it is paranormal stuff.
Oh
People love
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah.
People are starting to realize that the Bible doesn't have all the answers.
Hmm.
That the Quran doesn't have all the answers. So that they're starting to have an open mind and saying, okay, well, what other explanation can I have? How else can I approach this? And I think it's much more accepted, especially even among maybe not the top establishment, but as the higher up you go, they'll be like, well, yeah, let's hear him out and see what he's got to say. So, but just the fact that we've all experienced this. Now, you mentioned about the theta state and almost falling asleep. Yes, you are more receptive to stuff like that at that point. But even uh, let's go on talk about something different. So take for instance, there's sometimes I'm laying in bed and I'll hear footsteps walk around my bed. I'm not even almost asleep, and I've had exes that have been with me in bed, and all of a sudden they're shaking, and then they're like touching me and they're like, hey, I'm hearing footsteps, but there's no one there. I'm like, oh, don't worry, it's just a spirit, because they're not used to that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
and even when you're fully awake, you can see shadow people walk by. You can hear things, and like, say, take for instance, sometimes I'll just be in my bedroom watching TV, and I'll hear a spirit. I'll hear a voice just out of nowhere say something, and I know for sure I heard a voice as if someone was just standing there talking. So whether you're almost falling asleep or whether you're wide awake, this stuff can seem completely real and just happen.
Yeah, 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 for sure. I mean, and that's the thing is, and people might say it's imagination, but I think imagination is probably one of the most powerful tools that a magician or a sorcerer or a
Definitely,
medium
it's
or
key.
a
Yeah,
psychic has. I mean,
yeah,
we and I think actually, I was reading a book the other day or rereading this book about how humans evolved from other animal primates, other apes and stuff, and they're saying imagination is probably the biggest thing, that actually did that because we can imagine that all these other people like us, like if we're in an army, like chimpanzees, if they get together like 25 chimpanzees and they're like kind of a little army, they gotta all know each other. They all like have to touch each other because they've studied this, zoologists have. Humans, you get
right,
25 people if they're wearing the same uniform in the army or whatever, or even like wearing a shirt that, or going to the same church or whatever. They can imagine all these people are on my side, and and that's, I mean, it's a double-edged sword kind of because
yeah.
that's why we have wars and all that. But
Wow.
so I think imagination. People, a lot of people are afraid of their imagination, and like I said before, the stigma with the with psychology, you're hallucinating, you're
I
over imaginative. Because
I
I, I
think
I was
that
definitely discouraged about seeing spirits when I was a kid, and that's why the spirit that came to me said, "Don't tell people, don't even, because it'll cause you problems," which is
well, this is
good advice.
everyone, whether you're an atheist or whether you're an occultist or you're a religious person, it doesn't matter. Everybody experiences the same thing. Every night when you go to bed, you turn the lights out, and that darkness is staring you in the face, you can feel spirits near. You know what I mean? I don't care if anyone wants to deny, oh, that's just your imagination. No, you can feel them near. You're much more susceptible to hearing footsteps walking around throughout the home, or hearing voices, or hearing things that you wouldn't normally hear during the day. When there's cars going by, people talking outside. When it's quiet and it's dark, you're much more open to it. And your subconscious knows deep down, that there's something else there, no matter what your belief system is. I know some people, some hardcore atheists are cling to science, and that's fine. But I think on a deep level, they know and can sense that there's something there.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that also goes to like which I think goes hand in hand with what we're talking about is contemplating the afterlife and knowing that we're spirits too, and when you
Yeah,
go to sleep, when you go to sleep, that's probably what it's like after you die. That's the close. So we kind of and we're more prone. Like sometimes you'll have a dream about something, and you wake up and you're worried about it. Like oh, I got in an accident, and you'll be scrambling and you'll realize, oh, that was just a dream. Thank God, or whatever. That was just a dream. I didn't really get in an accident. I didn't really make a fool of myself in front of people or whatever it was that I had a bad dream about. So I mean, and that's the thing. I think that and that's why I think spirit contact is such an important part of anybody's magical practice. It also goes into like understanding ourselves, our own spirit, and what happens to us after we die, and how we're not dealing with the same limitations we are in these bodies when we die. And sleep,
Right.
kind of like dreams and sleep, kind of like shows us that a little bit, where you don't really have these boundaries, which I
Well,
think.
I mean, the thing is, the spirits in your home can talk to you through dreams. And the thing is, you will know the difference between whether it's just a random dream or it's an actual spirit talking to. So,
Mhm.
take for instance, I've had demons speak to me in my dreams. Like if they want to give me a direct message,
Mhm.
um, I will be able to feel their presence in the dream and just know when I wake up that was a demon talking to me.
Mhm.
Or I can tell, okay, well, that must have been an ancestor or a loved one that's passed on. Or,
Mhm.
me being, I don't know about most other people, but me having been an occultist for many years, I can tell the difference of what's talking to me in my dream, and whether it's a legit spirit talking to me to my dream, what kind of spirit it is, or whether it's just something random. I can
Yeah,
usually,
yeah, yeah. And as you refine the skills with communicating with spirits, you could say, like you said, if it's an ancestor, they'll come to you, and usually I think that's the best thing if you're going to build a spirit team and you're interacting with the things, is if you can identify there's an ancestor, or even if you identify a spirit that you may not understand, or you may not think has the best intentions for you. You could call upon your ancestors to like to mediate that a little bit better,
yeah,
and I think that's a
yeah,
good technique, to call upon your ancestors, and say, and you could use, props or whatever. Like this is a thing I use a lot, is a old family album. This is like my grandparents and other family members here. It's kind of creepy, but I mean, you call upon these spirits, and they obviously they want to take care. They're still your family, even though they passed on. And they
yeah.
they want to they want to mediate. They want to
And
help.
a lot of times they're watching and they're listening. You just got to call out to them. Even calling, even your higher self, your spirit guardian. It's always there to assist you. You just got to, call out and talk to it. But I think that what the first step is first of all acknowledging that there is a spirit and deciding, figuring out what kind of spirit it is. Because especially in occultism, you don't just want to approach and go into a ritual with any random spirit. You really want to be specific and know who or what it is you're talking to. Now, there's different ways you can do that. So if you're experienced with, spirit work and you can just kind of feel and just know right off the bat with your intuition, that's one way. You can also use different divination techniques, whether it's your tarot cards or your pendulum or whatever divination technique, you can ask them what kind of spirit is this, and the divination tools will tell you. Um, Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think what goes on is a lot of times it's like randomness, and this kind of goes along with when you're doing a working, at least in chaos magic, and a lot of other ones too, is not having such an intention, leaving it to chance to a little bit. And I think spirits pick up on that a lot. So some of the techniques, obviously, you have the Ouija board, which those are like kind of micro. I mean, what it is people could say, well, the spirits are moving the flanchette, or you could say, well, that's just like random micro like muscle movements, that are moving it. And that's the thing. We do co-create these spirits to a certain degree, but then when you look at it, like we co-create reality in general, you know? Because I mean, if you look at even quantum mechanics and stuff, a lot of times, you know, what these new theories are saying is until we look at something, it's like really kind of like in a form where it may not exist, you know, and
Mm,
observation by humans, or by anything, you know, you could say humans, animals, even like plants or whatever. Living things is actually what brings the things into reality, and I think you could use that same technique with spirits. You know, the imagination is not a negative thing. If you could imagine the spirit better and bring it into your consciousness to a certain degree, that I think the main thing is to be able to stay in control, because you don't want spirits to be coming at you when you're like, you know, you're at your job or something, you know, and you're like, whoa, you know, you people will be like, well, what's going on
yeah.
with this guy? Is he
And
schizophrenic
I've
or
had
what?
that happen. I've had that happen. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
there was a certain demon I was working with, and I was at a job a long time ago on an assembly line, and the demon came to my work, and all of a sudden, so I'm working on the assembly line, everyone's working on the assembly line, all of a sudden, everyone hears like a growl and then a pound, boom, and then the assembly line like kind of shook. Someone pounded it. Everyone's like, well, "What is that?" The demon had followed me to my work, and you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you want to set some boundaries. And so, take for instance, if anything is in your home and you know that it doesn't mean any harm to you, or even if you don't, you can just say out loud, you know, open the windows, you know, just entry points, you know, keep that open and just stay firmly but respectful. Just say that, you know, if anything is here to harm me, you are not welcome. You must leave now,
Hmm.
and just be
Yeah.
firm and direct, you know. And there's different ways you can go within, you know, you can use different incenses, you go in the corners and so forth, and make sure all the evils out of there. Um, One thing that I've found helpful, and I'll go ahead and say this, is that you can negotiate with spirits that are just random ghosts that are in your house. I've done this before. I've taken an offering plate and just offered them, you know, different offerings. You depending on the spirit, what spirit it is, you can, you know, find out what it likes, whether it's incense or food or whatever. You know, I've said, hey, you know, you guys are hanging around here. Why don't you guys, if I give you guys these offerings, why don't you guys do this for me? So there was this woman that was really giving me a hard time at a job, and she was just you know, just basically being a bitch, and I didn't like it. So I was like, these spirits in my home, I said, hey, look, if you bug this woman, you know, I'll give you these offerings to do this for me. Out of nowhere, within a day or two, someone just randomly pushes her down the stairs. And, you know, different things like that to bug her and scare her, you know, kind of saying,
Yeah.
hey, don't mess with
Yeah.
me, type of thing. So you can negotiate with these spirits by giving them offerings.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I've developed into doing, because you know I've been doing, since I said, you know, I've been seeing spirits since I was 7, so and I'm 57 now for 50 years, you know, so
Yeah.
I've developed actually, you know, kind of a spirit team that, and they know me, you know, and most of their ancestors, guides. I mean, I think almost all spirits that cleave to you, that actually will want to help you, are probably ancestors, but you just didn't know them, you know. So I feel, you know, and you know, when you meditate with them or dream with them or whatever, they'll tell you, you know, yeah, I was your great grandfather, you know, because I mean, like, I'll have people come into their old Wild West people, right? You know, like people like, well, you know, gunslingers and stuff, and those were my ancestors, but I never met them. You know, I wasn't around in the 1800s, right? So, but you know, I could hear stories and stuff like that, and the, you know, that's why it's important to tell stories with your family and get to know your family. And we were just talking about that last night. Personally, you were saying that you have a, you know, your family's teaching you. You didn't even get a DNA test, but your family taught you about the different you know, maybe like Native American aspects you have and things like that. So you could, you know, commune with the spirits and commune with your living family and learn about all this stuff, and you build a team around. And then what's usually what happens with me is, if when I notice something irregular, hearing voices or hearing a whispers or scratching at the door, or walking on the roof, or who knows, right? I'll reach out to my spirit team and say, "What's that?" And then the spirit team will be like, "Oh yeah, you know, well that is just a really a branch or whatever, you know." I mean, and you know, who knows? I don't go and check on it, but it's peace of mind, that I know that people are looking out after me, people and spirits, that they won't allow bad things in. So I don't even have to consciously banish or say, only goodwill. I mean, I do that, but that's more theatrical, working and stuff like that. But there's lots of tools that you could use. I wanted to bring in. I got this. I haven't used it for a while, but I've got this spirit box, and
Okay.
it's
Right.
actually so then this is working on the randomness, almost like it's got an AM receiver. I don't know if I can get it to work here, but what it basically does is it comes on and it just goes through the channels. That's it, yeah. And that's what we need to do. So we need to hear from you. If you haven't done anything, it goes to the scanning and it picks up different voices.
Yeah, and I've seen that
Yeah.
on ghost hunting shows. Even though I
Yeah.
will say that
It's
I
a
think a
little
lot of those
noisy, so
ghost
I don't want
hunt.
to put it on too much, but you get the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
concept, right? It scans all these channels and it gets random words in, and you'll get different results for different spirits and stuff, and you can meditate on that with a group, and instead of doing a Ouija board, you could do that, and that's like so we could do a whole show just on this, really, because a lot of people, and especially in LA, people bring these to the cemetery, or if they have they'll call somebody who has one and say, "Hey, I'm hearing spirits. I think I have poltergeist activity." Which it's interesting. Poltergeist. That word actually comes. It's a German word for basically like loud ghost. So Geist means ghost, and polter is like polter's like shaking kind of like thing.
Yeah.
So a loud ghost, poltergeist. When you have poltergeist activity, you could like use one of these boxes or a Ouija board or whatever. I mean, I think people have a stigma with Ouija boards because there's all these scary things about it and stuff, and they have the YouTube Ouija board at 3 a.m. and it caught on fire, and most of those are fake. I mean, I think.
Well, not to mention a lot of those ghost hunting shows. A lot of times when they're using the spirit box, you got to be wary of what you're watching. I think a lot of that is staged, just for the camera.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure, for sure. And then I wanted to plug a couple of books here that
yeah,
helped me.
sure.
This is Summoning Spirits, Christantos. It's good about a lot of this is actually using the Goetia and stuff like that, Solomonic magic. It's using if you want to incorporate Solomonic magic and having a drawing the pentagrams and all that kind of stuff. Lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, magical training. So this is really good, and this one's helped, even though it's not necessarily what we're talking about, but hacking the afterlife. It actually kind of is more of what I was saying of you coming in with your own spirit when you can reach your own spirit and understand your own spirit and the spirits around you, your ancestors and your guides and everything. Then it helps to discern what these spirits are that are coming to you in your house or wherever, and you can have more control, and like you said, if there is negative spirits, for me, my spirits, I automatically just push them to the side. No, he's not interested in that. He's not interested in having
Yeah.
bad luck or having things fall off the shelf and hit him in the head or something. I mean, I'm not
Well, it does
interested in that.
help. It take for instance, like if you have if there's certain, it helps to be balanced in the home, and this is I'm gonna explain what I mean. So I have certain altars set up to certain deities in my home. Now, I'll have some to some if you want to say dark entities. I might have to some demons. You know what I mean? Some altars set up to some demons. But to balance that out, I'll also have some altars set up or a space for light beings. You know what I mean? So the energy is balanced out. That also helps in the discernment. It also helps things in the home to be a little more on point and balanced. Because I think that if you have it, now I'm not now there are certain if you want to go ahead and have a home full of demonic entities, that's fine. That's no problem. That's perfectly fine, and you can still be able to discern things, and work with them and all that. It's just that for me personally, because everybody's different, the way my energy works is it's best worked with when the deities, there's not more than one type of deity or this type of deity. It's just an equal amount of each. You know what I mean? And that's just what works for me. If someone wants to be completely on work with light entities, they can make that work. If someone wants to completely work with, the demonic, that's fine. They can make that work. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, for me, that's what works for me. It's just a suggestion, just something I put that out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think this goes to, like, and this goes to politics and everything too. I mean, anytime you have a dichotomy when you bring up like dark and light or good and evil, or I mean, it's very subjective, and it depends on the situation a lot of the times. And if
Yeah.
somebody's always trying to go a certain way, and that's you're always trying to be good, and we see this with like with regular Orthodox Christianity churches type of thing, like pastors and stuff. They're trying to be good all the time, but then you end up, oh, there's a scandal. They did something inappropriate, or and so
Yeah.
it ends up being on the evil side. But they're actually always going around in circles saying, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And then on the this it's the same way with the other way. You're always, I'm dark, I'm evil, I'm dark, I'm evil. Then that gets. I think you have to be in the
No.
middle, and you have to decide. These are just energies. Even calling them dark and evil is something that we're trying to do to try to, like, get our head
Yeah. And the
around
thing
it.
is,
You know?
the thing that once you realize about, like, take for instance, working with, let's say, working with the demonic, it's not the fact that there are some that just like to harm, but not, most of them. I mean, yeah, they can specialize in that, but then they also can, look down and kind of have a heart for you. You know what I mean? Kind of help you out and help your family out and just look out for you. And I mean, though they may be labeled as demonic, and they may specialize in harming and cursing, that doesn't mean that they can't help you out when it comes to, you and your loved ones and, doing things that's going to better your life. I mean, of course, they're all for that too. They can have a heart and cut someone some slack and I mean, it's like saying that, oh, all Asian people are this way,
Yeah.
all black people are this way, all white people are.
Stereotypes. Yeah.
They're you know what I mean. They're not all that way. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated than that. But yeah, man. I had mentioned about the negotiating thing. You can negotiate with the spirits and just kind of be creative. You can. Some people have spirits in their home to help them empower certain rites that they do. Whether you're doing some folk magic or just some ceremonial magic, they can be there to empower the ritual. I don't know what kind of a working relationship you might have with one. That's up to you, but they can be there to empower a rite.
Mhm.
Like I said, you could just negotiate with them and help them. Uh, whether it's spiritual attack. I mean, I've had effigies in my home where I stab the effigy, and there's spirits that are there that have helped empower that, and the person falls to their knees in pain. You know what I mean? You can just get creative and, like I said, just negotiate with the spirits and give them offerings and kind of set a working relationship. Now, you got to make sure that you can trust them first of all,
Mhm.
because you can just do some divination and find out through divination methods whether you can trust them or not. Um, and if it looks like everything's going to go good, then you go ahead and go through with it right. That's just me personally, what I've done from time to time and what works for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think we have to consider too, like when you talk about something like a demon, like these, these were a lot of these things were entities before, the mythology of Christianity took it and said, this is a rival, and I think that goes down to like the whole thing of a stigma of seeing spirits, a stigma of that is it's competition, because when you're in a because we both come from a Christian background. When you're in a Christian church, they want you to be, communing with the Holy Spirit, communing with Jesus, communing with God the Father. Those are the Trinity of spirits you got. You've got something outside that. They're automatically going to say that's negative. No, that's not. You pray
Very
for that to go
close-minded, yeah.
away. You don't want. And so that goes. Like even like Baal and Astarte and all these things in there. They were gods to other people that the Israelites encountered, and they're like, well, your God is a demon in our thing, you know. So
Of
and that
course.
happens, you know, modernly too. You know, I mean,
Well,
the gods of other religions turn into demons or negative things to other things.
you
You know.
know, now that you mentioned that, you mentioned about churches and Christianity. I think that some religious people who have paranormal activity at home, I think some of it is affected by when they go to church. And let me explain what I mean by that. So let's say you have, like, I come from a Pentecostal upbringing. So if someone goes to a Pentecostal church, they see, someone speaking in tongues or slain in the spirit, or so you can tell someone's possessed and they might be giving a prophecy. Okay, now they say that that's the Holy Spirit. The way I look at it is, if it is a spirit, it's a spirit. It may not be the Holy Spirit, but it is a spirit. Now, maybe it's a spirit that's attached itself to that building and to that group of people to take energy from them and to move in their life. I don't know. But it is a spirit. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the Holy Spirit of what's described in the Bible. But you got to keep in mind that these people go to these buildings every week. Sometimes they're there 3, 4 times a week. You don't think that that spirit's going to follow some of them home and kind of hang around a little bit, or well, let me see what so and so's up to, or let's see what's going on with oh, that person's having an affair. I want to look more into that. Just kind of follow them home in the car, go in their home, maybe go back to the building, see what's going on in this person's life. Now, I think if someone is um if a church family is having paranormal activity, it might be tied to what they're interacting with at the church, thinking it's a Holy Spirit, or thinking it's a
Yeah.
saint, or thinking it's some kind of spirit from their holy book. And they're completely oblivious to that may be what's causing a lot of the paranormal activity in their home.
Yeah, and it also depends on what particular church, denomination, and all that. Because I mean, there's some denominations, or subgroups or whatever of Christianity. Like, I mean, not to pick on them, but like Jehovah's Witness, for example. I remember they had a big thing where they said the Smurfs were demons. You know, like the little Smurf cartoon. You know, so I think, and there's.
Yeah,
That's not picking on them. There's other churches that aren't Jehovah's Witness that would do say these things too. Anime is demons, because they do have a lot of imagery that could be, so
yeah,
cartoons are demonic. I mean, there's some
you
pastors that would
know,
say almost anything's demonic except you hear from me that it's a good spirit, and that's God, that's Jesus, that goes down to, where why people usually go into like more like the direction that we're into is because they want to, they meaning the people in the Orthodox Christian, more like you have the one book, the Bible, and you have one guy to explain it to you, whether it's a pastor, the Pope, or the bishop, or whatever title they want to give it.
yeah.
It's like that's what you have to do. And anything else, you want to explore, you want to try to talk to the spirit in your house. No, don't be talking to the spirit in your house. You'll go crazy and you're going to hell. That's what they tell you. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced something like that, right?
Or yeah, or they'll say something ridiculous. They'll say something ridiculous like, "Oh, well, it's Super Bowl Sunday. We have church tonight, and if you want to stay home and watch the Super Bowl, that's the devil whispering in your ear. That's a demon whispering in your ear for you to stay home and not go worship God." You know what I mean? Like, it just gets ridiculous. It gets just completely stupid. But anyways, but yeah, man, that's some quick little chat on what dealing with different spirits in your home. Anything else you want to add before we call it a day?
No, I mean, I hope we do a whole series on this. I could
Yeah,
talk on it
we
forever,
can do a part two. That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At
brainstorm
least
and
a
stuff.
part two, and I mean, I like I said, yeah, we get more into the spirit box.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't, I haven't used this for a while, and it kind of takes over. It actually is such an oracle that it will take over a crowd, and so I
Well, I
recommend
mean,
learning how to use it. But I
yeah,
don't want to
and
do
I
it on
can.
this so much because it'll take away
That's
from our
fine.
conversation.
And I can even go to the cemetery like I did last video, maybe do some creative stuff over there, me and Gazalem or whoever. But yeah, man, we could definitely do a part two on
Yeah, and I
this.
think these are only like $30, 20, $30 on Amazon if you wanted to get one yourself or
I'll
whatever.
probably pick one up and do
Yeah.
some creative stuff with it. So yeah, no
Mhm.
problem, man. But yeah, anyone who's watching, if you want to check out Guion's links, his production company is Guillotine Productions. You can check those links out below in the video description. Check out his content. And yeah, Guion, it's always good having you on. Good chat.
Hmm.
And everyone who's watching, make sure you like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.